So apart from Ananya, has anybody else read Ratna Kapoor or any parts of Ratna Kapoor's writing? So Ananya, we need to take a call. If they have not read, should we be educating them?
Ma'am, up to you.
No, I really don't want to spoon feed people. If they don't want to make the effort, then let them be. But this is not something that they just come here at leisure and will do no reading. And especially those students who are not even part of my class and I've permitted them to. Classes are not only for coming and listening, it is also participating in the classroom. So what is the most important thing you will say Ratna Kapoor give you an insight about? Mhm. Yes,
Ma'am,
Ananya.
she has used law. She has used the what is the effect of law in women's movement. And at the end of the reading, we realize that law doesn't play a whole big role because we also need to educate the people and improve their ideological thinking, their conditioning, which they have been following. Because since
Mhm.
the pre-independence time, since the social reformers, they have been trying to get laws into force to uplift the situation of women or to bring equality, but there is no support from the people around. There were contentions like the religion is in danger if you improve the women, if you give them equality. So apart, she has, though the use of law has increased over the years, but we still need to focus that law ek had tak it can improve the situation because it's a concrete thing. If something is happening, if there is a rape, if there is any kind of domestic violence, you have something in the hand that you can approach to the court. But along with that, a lot of education and a lot of ideological change is necessary along with that. So this was the whole crux of the Ratna Kapoor, and she has taken us to the three periods, that is social reformers period before independence, then what happened during independence, and then after, and the three different kinds of approach which feminists have used, and the use of law in all these approach. So in the most first approach, social reformers, even Raja Ram Mohan Roy said that he was not in favor of bringing a law to end sati. He was like, you can use other forces, as you can deploy the police, but you can, if you bring a law, there would be a lot of repercussions. So जितना profit होना चाहिए एक law के लाने से, उससे ज़्यादा opposite forces aa rahi thi to prevent that, so that their religion is not in danger, so to protect the intervention of the British. So first approach mein ye raha ki more than it can help the people, help the women, there were opposite forces jo usko mana kar rahi thi ki sati shouldn't be banned, child marriage shouldn't be, the age of consent shouldn't be increased. उसके बाद second, it's independence approach में equality approach, there was equality approach from a woman upliftment. They were thinking about equality, that there is need to have a equality between men and women. And also in social reformers, when I think I noticed one thing, that it was all only for that if you educate the women, it is only for the family. There was no public sphere equality. Public sphere equality came into being during the independence movement, when Sarojini Naidu and Annie Besant entered into the field, and she asked for the public and private, break the public and private dichotomy and make women enter into the public sphere as well. Is maybe there was a lot of like the Hindu group, there was a lot of problems to pass the Hindu code, Hindu civil code, the Hindu Marriage Act we read, Hindu Maintenance Act, in which a lot of inheritance power and property power were given to women. It was declined for like continuous two times, which led to the resignation of B.R. Ambedkar, and after that it was passed. So there were a lot of repercussions, though it was passed. I guess law has played a role from this movement, that they have started approaching ki, at least they have something concrete in their hand. So फिर Hindu code आया, though लोगों को एजुकेशन करना एंड कंडीशनिंग वो रिमूव करना, it will take time, but at least you have something in hand. Then contemporary approach में contemporary movement में they started having this patriarchy approach, जिसमें law का बहुत use आने लगा, because they started asking for rape laws, improvement rape laws, and one more was there. I'm not. Wait a second. Sexual assault reforms and rape और डाउरी एक्ट्स एंड डीवी, बिकॉज उस पॉइंट पे ये सारी चीजें बहुत हो रही थी. सो दो इतना नहीं हेल्प हुआ लॉ, बट still they have got something concrete. They have various reforms after Mathura case and after various case, and after these laws came into being, slowly लोगों को भी पता चलने लगा, and somehow it also played a role in educating people. और फिर लॉ से नहीं काम हो पाता, तो these women organizations started providing legal assistance to women. They started educating them कि ठीक है, law should be your main point, कि ठीक है, अगर कोर्ट में it's very difficult to get a justice, at least we are informing you about your rights, that you have domestic violence act, you have dowry act, and about their rights. So at the end of the day, this was the conclusion, that though वो उनको सब कुछ नहीं मिल पा रहा था, दैट वाज द आस्किंग, जो भी रिफॉर्म्स वो आस्क कर रही थी women organization, though they were not getting everything, but at least they were getting something out of it. So it's a long process to long way to go, but still they are going on this path ki धीरे, but you cannot leave law behind, because somehow law is not playing 100% role, but it's still important. In 50% it is still important. At least you have something concrete कि धीरे धीरे कोई तो होगा ना, at least 10 में एक इंसान आएगा जो शायद they'll approach court. So law होना भी is very important. Along with that, education, telling people about what is right and what is wrong is equally important. Improving the society is also important. So she gave a brief about all this.
This was your conclusion from this. Huh? You've given a whole reading. You have been helping your class fellows. Good of you. I would have never told them anything about this reading. The main point, of course, is that the feminists have been for a long time decrying role of law.
Madam,
Ji.
yeah, I'm Dr. Yesheshwar.
Ji.
Actually, this topic was mine because I was busy in some other parts. So that's my candid confession before all friends, before you also, that it couldn't presented by me. But I whatever I got, I would like to share. I read whole things, but since I was busy, but some of the things I would like to share with my friends.
Okay.
About Ratna Kapoor and all that. Whatever last speaker narrated the whole thing. That was very nice. Three approaches she talked about. Dr. Ratna, how that came pre-independence and post-independence. One important aspect, what I could condense through these document, that she is actually emphasizing more on to be more empirical while reading the legal judgments, and we need to take out some of those aspects which actually not only giving the empowerment to our women in terms of legal judgments, but also to say that she used one word, that familial ideology. So in some judgments they lost the case in dowry and other adultery cases, but women in some cases judgment is like that, they are defending that I was a good wife, I was a good daughter. I was doing everything in my family convincingly well. So that judgment should come in my favor. So that Ratna actually emphasizing more on that aspect. Even some judgments are in your favor, but you need to excavate those points which actually giving you the benefit, but they are against the whole feminist movement.
Can you give an example?
uh, one example, madam, I have to see uh, there that moral regulation of women in and through the family. So in adultery case and in divorce case, they were saying uh, uh, man can take divorce or can talk about adultery, uh, and straight away that man can take the divorce. But there are some additional grounds for female to prove that that atrocity is going against her, or that physical violence is going against her. But one case, this I think Dipali Natkar, Dipali Natkar versus Deepak Natkar versus Dipali Natkar. The wife was working at a place a distance from matrimonial. The husband accused of refusing to cohabit with him and filed a petition for divorce on the ground of cruelty based in part of the allegation. The lower court refused to grant decree dissolution of this. Uh, uh, then wife always remain ready and willing to perform her duties and obligation as a faithful wife. तो उसको डिनाई कर दिया गया दीपक को कि तुम कोई डाइवोर्स नहीं मिल सकता. So in this judgment, are you getting, madam?
Yes.
So actually they are more putting weightage on the familial ideology. Okay, yes, she is saying that I will perform. I have been performing all the duties as a good wife. I'm always remain ready for other duties and obligation as faithful wife. So judgment came in her favor. So this is the point we look into very minutely on these aspects. That they are actually against women.
Yeah, because it is again saying that you have to be a good wife. Now, whether a good wife and a good worker can coexist. That's the dilemma women face. In order to be good wife, they have to be good mother, they have to be good woman, with performing all those responsibilities of being good in these capacities. Can she be equally a good worker? And we'll come to that when we come to the women's employment and all. But certainly, sometimes the judgment will seem like it is favorable to women, but it does not. It does nothing to change the ideology of who a woman. So that's the point, and that's an important point which Ishwar has brought out. So certainly, yes.
One more thing, madam, I would like to add. I was also searching some of the research papers on these aspects, and they categorically talked about the oral judgment in some Supreme Courts of USA. There is a sort of dominance of male in giving the oral argument. The female when judge is a woman, that will receive so much resistance even from the male lawyer. So that sort of thing is well documented in the 2019 publication. So I couldn't condense that thing right now because I was busy. So I went through some of the current literature regarding that. So
you can always bring your insights as and when you can. Thank you for having done your job. We were a little disappointed the other day because your presentation was listed and I won't recollect who was the student who had volunteered. But anyway, you have come back and Ananya has presented. So, and you will see that what Ratna is talking about in her presentation, you will find this reflection of that discussion in lots of our discussions in subsequent classes. When we will look at individual judgments, we will look at individual legislations to find out that seemingly women-friendly judgments and legislations substantively are also that way or not. Where are the hidden agendas of the patriarchy, which still are reflected. So you will find, lots of landmark judgments we have in this course, like the air hostess case, the judgment on muster roll, the daily wage workers, pregnancy leave. They are very, very progressive judgments. And they have really added to the women's rights discourse in law. But when you look at these statements or the rationale given for why it is so and what has been granted and what has not been granted, that analysis will tell us that how law, what we said as politically correct judgment may not actually be giving us any movement forward. So, okay, that's good. Anybody who has had a chance, because we were supposed to have looked at the data long ago. Anybody who has looked at the data on status of women? I did share with you the indicators of status. And did anyone find out any data? The other day we did have some in the classroom. And because we still do not have the National Family Health Survey 5 consolidated data, so we look at the older data. And the indicators are still the same, even in the new one, even for the states which we do have information. Though, of course, there is variations in the states. So I'll share with you some portions of my PPT, which I prepared on empowerment. And then I'll share the PPT prepared by a student last semester, the last batch, on National Family Health Survey 4. And then we'll see that, what are the indicators. Because on the face of it, it would seem that the general conversation nowadays has been that women have achieved equality and they have actually become more powerful with the aid of law, which is so much in their favor. And they are misusing the law. That is a very, very prominent discourse these days. And somehow we do not tend to look at the ground level data. And it's important to apprise ourselves of the data. Certainly, there are lots of progresses which have been made in terms of data also. But the data show that we are still far away from equality. Even at the normative level in law, we do know that there's a lot of laws even today which exclude women or which give secondary status to women. And the rationale for that we have to examine and unearth what are the rationale for that. So I'll first look at the slide I had prepared. So when we are talking about equality, we did look at Article 14, which says equality before law and equal protection of law. And it includes within it the principle of rational classification, which have that the classification should have a purpose, which is justifying the classification, and we can give unequal treatment. And it says that only on the ground of religion, race, sex, place of birth, etc. And a lot of discriminatory laws have been justified by reference to the distinction that the discrimination against women or any other group is not only on these grounds, but there are multiple grounds in addition to these. And certainly 15.3 we have also looked at, which is special provisions. This was the indicator dimension that I mentioned with you, that we have to look at what are the differences in likelihood of survival of men and women, what is the assigned human worth, in which our later judgment will come, where they're saying the wife's work is equivalent to the husband's income. Then what is the difference in the control women and men exercise over property, valued goods and services, working conditions, knowledge and information, political processes, one's own body, daily lifestyles, and reproductive processes. So we can have whatever data is available on these heads in the National Family Health Survey, we will look at. And you also have this huge thing about beauty. I don't know why this slide is here, but I thought I'd just share it all the same. There's a book by Naomi Wolf called Beauty Myth. It's a very beautiful book, and all women must read this. And this whole thing that I must look beautiful. And this is the picture of Lakshmi. The first top left is Lakshmi before her acid attack. Second one immediately after that. Third one after a lot of surgery. And she, of course, got into the fashion designing also. And she was afraid that her daughter will be very, very scared to look at her face. But of course, the daughter does not know this distinction between beauty and otherwise. It only knows that this is the mother. So here is this figure on the sex ratio. And what's important to look at is that left is the female per 1,000. On the left side, you can see this is the sex ratio in 2001 and 2011 among women. And then you can have a look at, you must have a look at what is more crucial for us. It is 0 to 6 years sex ratio. So in 2001, when you look at green is the total, brown is rural, and blue is urban. So you can see that in 2000, in both the years, the sex ratio for women is much less in urban area than it is in the rural area. Look at the 0 to 6. 0 to 6 shows us 900. When you look at 2011 overall ratio, it has improved from 933 to 943. When you look at the child next generation, it has gone down from 927 to 919. So this whole conversation which says that no, we are all accepting women, they are equal, certainly is not indicated by our preference for having next generation children. Most of us do not want to have girls, daughters as their offspring. Everybody is vying for sons. And this is reflecting worse in the urban area. In the rural area in 2001, it was 934 girls, 2,000 boys. It came down to 906. And in urban area, it was as 923 and has come down to 905 in 2011. So I think that's very, very crucial for us to understand that if our desire for daughters has not increased, or we are not saying it doesn't matter whether we have daughters or sons, our mindset hasn't changed, whatever may have changed, because when you look at the adult sex ratio of women, it is improving. But the fact that the next generation it is decreasing, it is indicating that in the mind nothing has changed, even though superficially more women are getting educated, more women are getting into jobs, more women are earning more, but the mindset of both men and women is still at the same place where it was. Sex of the child, the IMR among girls has become equal to that among infant mortality rate. It has become similar, indicating the gender inequality, infant mortality. The girls have lower mortality in neonatal period, but then have higher mortality than boys thereafter throughout their childhood. Due to lower neonatal mortality, IMR in girls had been lower than among boys during all 5-year periods since 1981. However, in recent years, due to slower decline in NNMR among girls, IMR among girls has become equal to that among boys. The adolescent mothers, children born to adolescent mothers are at higher risk, and under 5 mortality rates are higher among mothers under 20 years of age. And that's also another concern we've been having. We have been having all this debate of raising the mother's age for marriage to 21, making it same for the boys. And to some extent, it is assumed, one, that if you raise the age of marriage, the girls will automatically be married at a later age. Second one, that children are born only in marriage and not outside. So that's something we need to really be aware of. The effect of low age of mother on mortality is highest during the neonatal period. Spacing between children born less than 2 years after the first delivery are less likely to survive, and we do find the data relating to that. Then we have the maternal nutrition status, and we'll look at this in the in the National Family Health Survey 4 as well, that the women have got a much higher level of uh, nutritional issues compared to men of the same age, especially the anemia is very, very prevalent. And that is also a very important reason for maternal mortality. Mortality among children born to malnourished, anemic, as well as obese mothers is higher. So that's the data there. Attendance at childbirth, we do know that even now, this is saying neonatal mortality is lowest, but there are still lots of children which are being born at home with the help of a dai rather than a professional health worker, and that leads to another reason to the neonatal mortality. Social economic factors: children born in SC/ST families have higher risk of dying than others. So now we are finding a class category also in determining what is the children's status there, and children's status is directly connected with the mother's status as well. Economic status as measured by standard of living, mortality among low, the SLI has, I forget now what is SLI, declined the most. Literacy
Standard
rate.
living of index that is there.
Okay, thank you. So literacy rate, you can see that it's been improving for girls from 1951 to 2011, and it has so increased for the men as well. But we still have the equality in education is not there. When you say this is a literacy rate, it is not indicating or inclusive of the higher education. And we know that as the level of higher education increases, the number of girls in those higher education institutions decreases. So there is an inverse ratio there, that higher the education, lesser the girls are there, even though now we are claiming that most of the places we have 100% enrollment in the school at the base level, but the dropout rate for girls are much higher. But even at literacy level, which we are saying till the 5th standard, we are still very, we still have fewer women in that category. So when you said knowledge and information, that's indicative of that. Children born to mothers with at least 8 years of schooling have 32% lesser chance of dying in neonatal period and 52% lesser chance in the post-neonatal period. Now, what is this data indicating? Again, the norm that we should be educating girls so that they can provide better care to the family. It is not for their own health. So this data, actually, the fact that we're culling out this data is justifying why girls should be given education because it leads to lesser percent of neonatal deaths. Gender role attitude. These are very interesting, and I do want to share some, which we will see again in the 4th survey as well. So why beating justified? You can see that more women justify that husband can beat them compared to men. 54% men, 54% women. So it's not that patriarchy prevails only in the minds of the men. Patriarchy is very much accepted by women as well. If a woman shows disrespect for in-laws, it is justified. The reasons why they were justified, 41% women and 37% men says it is okay to beat her up if she is showing disrespect to her in-laws. If she neglects the house or children, 35% women say this is justified. So there are women who are giving you more reasons why the men can beat them up. More men than women justified refusing sex. If man had STD, he is adulterous. If she's tired and not in the mood, so there's nothing that's got any. And this is the same thing in the next one also. That you can see again that women think that men have absolute power over their bodies, and they have got no right to refuse. So comparatively, more men think that it is justified, while it should have been the more women who would be saying that no, they are entitled to say no. But we are again finding patriarchal value pattern very much accepted by women in marriages. Spousal violence, which continues, 1/3 ever married women. And I was quite surprised I did not know the international figures or other countries' figures, but then in US last year I was there, and I did ask my gender justice students there that what is the percentage of domestic violence, and they said 1 in 3. I said, wow. After all the education, after all the prosperity, the patriarchy in terms of wife beating still exists at the same level as in India. So 12 to 15% reported arm twisting, being pushed, shaken, kicked, dragged, beaten up, or having something thrown at them. 10% physically forced to have sex. 1 in 7 ever married women have suffered physical injuries as a result of spousal violence. 1 in 7. Women whose mothers were beaten by their fathers are twice as likely to be in abusive marriage relationships themselves. For most women who have ever experienced spousal violence, the violence first occurred within the first 2 years of their marriage. And they, of course, continue in those marriages, and that's an enigma for people to know. But we do know that the way we have constructed this world, the women have constructed this world, is more relatedness than separation and independence. And that's how they continue to live on those. Marriage and employment. Women less than 50% as likely to be employed as men. And certainly we are recognizing that men are also employed, women are also unemployed. And actually today's newspaper does give us figures as how many more women lost their job during pandemic compared to men, and increased, their workload increased because certainly they were the house carers earlier, but they were still managing it from a long distance. But now they were at home and they had to look after their children's education also, the family, the cooking and cleaning and washing and everything, in addition to their own work. And certainly they've lost a lot more jobs during pandemic than the men have. When employed, 70% were men to be paid only in cash. So if 100 men are getting paid in cash, it's 70% who will be paid only in cash, 5 times more likely than men not to receive any earnings at all. And this is employed women we're talking about. So sometimes exploitation happens and men are also not paid, but women 5 times more likely not to receive any earnings from the work that they do in employment. Even among the oldest age group, the most highly educated category of women and women belonging to the highest wealth quintile, only 28 to 31% women mainly decide for themselves how their earnings are to be used. So it is not that if you're earning, because somewhere we had at some point of time, I believe, and yes, the last class when we had Her Majesty Judge Itlos come to us, and her work was, her title of the PhD thesis was Economic Independence as a Step Towards Equality. So certainly it's a step toward, but it doesn't result into, because the control over that earning is still with the husband and with the in-laws rather than on her own. And today we are finding it much more difficult. We have this now 1 and 2 children, and many a times it's a single woman. And if she's earning, there is a tussle between how much money she can spend on her parents and how much money she should spend on her marital home. And if the woman is not working, the single child, the daughter is not working, who is responsible to look after the parents-in-law? So we say that the girls and boys should look after the parents. But this girl who is now married and is not in employment, how does she maintain her parents-in-law? Can she ask for money from the husband to maintain her own parents? Because we don't know that the son is obliged to maintain his parents, and most of the sons are working. But when women are not working and they are themselves dependent on the husband, who will look after? And unless we make equal obligation on the parents and parents-in-law to be maintained, we will find that more parents who have accepted the norm of 1 or 2 child and are not going for sequence, for waiting for a son to be born to them, they will be left high and dry without any security, any kind of social security for them in their old age. So certainly that adds to the son preference issue. Wife earnings, only 10% said that their wives earn more. 66% said she earned less, and 14% said it's the same. So this is again indicative of the hypergamous marriages where the husbands are supposed to earn more than the wife, and that's suggested by the facts as well. So certainly the taller man, the older man, the more earning man, all that creates a secondary status of the wife in the family setup as well. Only 44.6% said that they can decide how to use the money that they have. Only 15% have a bank or saving accounts, only which is used by them. Otherwise, if they have a bank account, it will be a joint account. And look at this one. They can't even go to the market, so all these three places: market, health facility, and places outside the village or community. So if the health center is not within the village, they will not be able to take access to the health center even because they are not permitted to go on. So even going to a market, health facility and place outside the village, they have to be dependent on somebody else, usually the men in the family. So if the men are not available or not willing to, they are just stuck. These are very important statistics. 5 in 1 women and men want more sons than daughters. 1 in 5 women and men want more sons than daughters, but only 2 to 3% want more daughters than sons. No more children are desired if they have got 2 sons. So 90% women said, no, we don't want any more children. 92% men said, we do not want any more children. If there's either 1 daughter or 1 son, then 87% said, we want more, and 88 men said, we want more. The 2 daughters and no son, 61% said, and 62% said, we want more children. So certainly when there are 2 daughters, the desire, compare the 2 sons and 2 daughters scenario. So 90% people, 92, 91 is the average, people say, no, we don't want any more because now our family's complete got 2 sons. So you've got 1 son and 1 daughter. Again, usually not many, but one is still saying, okay, it's still okay. But there's still a percentage of persons who are saying, yes, we would want to have another son actually. The 2 daughters, then 61% and 62% are saying, no, we do not, we do want more sons. And no, this is we don't want any more children. So it's a comparatively much lesser percentage of parents who are saying when they got 2 daughters, then certainly quite a many of them still desire to have, the majority actually, 61 and 62% desire to have 1 more child. So 1 more try to decide whether they can have a son. And this also is important, child sex ratio. For these many births studied for 1997, if preceding child was a girl, the ratio of the boys and girls was 759 to 1,000 males. So the first child was a daughter. Then the second child, we have 759 girls to 1,000 males. Preceding were 2 girls. If there were first 2 girls born, then for the third child, the ratio decreased to 719. But look at the third one. If the previous children were boys, the second ratio for the second child, which is girls, is 1,112 and 1,102. So compare this with the figure 759. So there is a girl before, then the number of girls decreases drastically for the second born, which means that female feticide is being practiced at a very high level. Because when there is a girl, then the desire to have boys a lot more, and very few girls are permitted to be born when there's a girl already. And certainly if we already have a boy, then it doesn't matter now whether we have a son or a daughter. The ratio jumps to 1,102. And the same goes for 2 preceding daughters. The ratio jumps from 719, you've got already son already there, whether the second one was a girl or a boy. The third child, the number has gone to 1176. Very categorically, if parents have got a son, then they're not bothered to go for tests. But if they have got a daughter, more parents, and especially when they get two daughters, and with this norm of having family planning, the idea is very categorical that we cannot go on having number of children like my mate has. The rate of son, she's got 6 daughters. So we cannot have 6 daughters. We are educated people, but we still want to have a son. So the mentality is no difference between the maid and me, who is now going for female for sex determination and female feticide. Of course, we say this is legitimate abortion. Child sex ratio at birth by level of education of the mother. This is also very interesting figure. Now look at the second one. Look at graduates and above, the extreme right figure. This is all of us here. No? We are all graduates in this class, minimum graduates, if not more. This is us who are figuring much worse than the illiterate woman. In case of illiterate woman, the ratio is 920. And in case of graduation and above, 876, we are only better than what we have this called middle but below graduates. So the middle with college education, it only improves marginally. But if you are at middle pass, this you are at the worst level. Middle but below metric, 885. Primary but below middle. As the level of education decreases, the number of girls being born to the mother increases. Can we believe this? This is what education is doing to us. That we do not want to have next generation daughters. This is the All India map. And this is, I forget now which year is this, 2011. The number of the Browns have been increasing. National Family Health, 15 to 9 fertility rate. This we can skip. Health, wellness, reduce family planning with institution. I think this we will skip and we'll come to the family health survey. This is also interesting. Mobile phones. 28% women against 43% men have access to mobile phone. Gender gap of mobile ownership is as much as 114 million. Female literacy. The rates have improved in Bihar, Haryana, Karnataka, Madhya Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, West Bengal. So now let's look at the other one. And what she has, this is the slide from Astha from last semester, last batch. And I'm going to skip. No, she was very enamored by the health statistics. She's taken all that. But we'll come to slide 33 onwards, where she's talking about women empowerment. But I thought I'll run through this slide she had prepared. Nutrition status. You can look at this here. The women, men, and this is thin and overweight. So this is thin women. This is overweight women. 3, 4, the comparison is given. So you can find that, and it was very interesting to see that there are more thinner women and lesser fat women in villages, and opposite is true for the cities. Undernutrition, overnutrition, fairly constant across all groups. I think I'm going to run this through. Pattern of background characteristics, higher proportion of thin women and thin and fat women, anemia. And this is an important statistics because women mother mortality rate is very high in India compared to other countries. And it is one of the major reasons responsible for is the anemia prevalent in women. You can look at 53% of women compared to 23% of men aged 15 to 49 in India are anemic. And this figure has been taken from the perspective of 15 to 49 years is seen as the fertile age where more women produce children. 40% of women are mildly anemic, 12% moderately, and 1% severely anemic. And in comparison, 12% men are classified as mildly anemic, 10% as moderate, and 1%. So severe anemic is the same between the two groups, but very high differences between the mildly anemic category. Moderate is also marginally different, but certainly this is higher for women. Food consumption required for both of them, but almost half women consume dark green leafy vegetables daily, and additional 38% consume them weekly, 45% pulses and beans. And when you look at the the reason for them, edited drinks are consumed daily by 5% women, 20% and weekly by 20% women. The pattern of food consumption is men and women is similar to that of women, but men are slightly more likely than women to consume milk or curd regularly, as well as fruits, and that also results into different kind of deficiencies. This is as the deficiency diet of both women and men are observed among those with little or no schooling, those in rural areas, those in poorer households, and those belonging to scheduled tribes and scheduled castes. The most prominent deficiency in the their diet is in fruits and milk and curd. Morbidity and healthcare, tuberculosis, higher among men than women. Knowledge and attitude. So when we are also having this indicator about how much access they have or control they have over information, 80%, 87% of women and 88% of men. So slightly more percentage of men have heard of TB. 89% of women and 91% of men have heard that TB can be cured. So this is higher percentage for men again. Prevalence of diabetes, 2%. Asthma, 2% among women, 1% men, 2% among women, more prevalent among women than men. 1% of women and men have heart diseases of less than 1% of cancer. Tobacco, I'm going to skip this. Drinking was interesting. Alcohol, 1% of women drink alcohol compared to 29% of men. Among women who drink alcohol, 18% drink every day, 35% drink about once a week. Among men who drink alcohol, 12% drink almost every day, 41% once a week, and 48% less than once a week. This is again indicator. This is linked up with the accessibility to going alone. Medical treatment, about 2/3 of women report at least one problem in obtaining medical health care. One-fourth of them said money. Somebody was asking why Delhi has provided free rides on the DTC buses to women. And I've realized that this is an important support for women who are not able to go. Many times you have to go somewhere, the men will say, we'll go because we do not have enough money to take everybody. So all the women and daughters will be left home, and the son and fathers will go to whatever wedding parties or wherever they need to go. So this providing a free ride I certainly believe that is very, very supportive of poor women who can now travel without, no, that is not the reason anymore, which the family can say, we can't take you because we do not have money. Then the distance is 30% women, 27% cite having to take transport as a problem, 37 report concern that no female health provider is available, 45% said no provider is available at all in that place, and 46% said that drugs are not available. This I'll skip, but you can see that in all these cases, the blood pressure is higher in men compared to women in all the age groups. So these are very important. Cervix cancer is very, cervix examination and breast examination are very important for women. And we do find that there's a religious tint to this. Muslim women are less likely to undergo examination of the cervix and the breast than women belonging to other religions. Sikh women are more likely to be taking this. The proportion of women receiving all three types of health examinations increase steadily with the household level of wealth. Adult mortality. This is again in contrast with when we were looking at the child mortality. We found that in the first year infancy, it was the same for boys and girls, but it increased for girls under the later age. But when it comes to the adulthood, more women survive. And you look at the national age data, I think the average for men is, I forget now, 74 or something, and for women it is 78. So if they survive the child, if they survive the female feticide, if they survive the infant mortality, the child survive the child mortality, if they survive the domestic violence and dowry harassment, then at the end of the day, they end up living longer than the men. And the medical science does tell us that at the time of birth, the indicators of life, what do you call that? The potential of life is higher in girls than it is in boys. But because of the neglect of the girls' children born, a lot of girls die at a very young age. But if they survive that period, then their body is stronger than the men. So this whole concept about women's body being weaker, they might be weaker in physical strength, but in terms of health parameters and body fighting spirits, their body is much stronger than it is the men, and it has to be for them to give birth from their own bodies. The proportion of death due to non-medical reasons is particularly high for men and women, respectively. HIV-related knowledge, attitude, and behavior. 76% women, 89% men have heard of HIV/AIDS. Again, comparatively much lower percent of women have heard in the lowest wealth quintile. And so look at this again, figures, 94, in all the, even in the highest category, it is 94 to 97%. However, only 55% of women and 77% of men know that using condoms consistently reduces the risk of getting the HIV/AIDS. The knowledge category is lower for both, but it is much lower for women. The same goes for other related aspects about HIV/AIDS and all others. I'll put this slide onto the portal so you can have a look at this at later ages. Percentage of men and women, knowledge of HIV/AIDS, preventing HIV/AIDS. So this was all depend, all the factors which we're talking about, how much access to knowledge they have. This is all. I'll pass on this. Discriminatory attitude, all attitude towards negotiating sex. So when we were saying that, again, we find the same pattern that fewer percentage of women says they can refuse sex compared to men. In addition, 82% of the men agree that wife is justified in asking her husband to use a condom if he has sexually transmitted disease. Wife can refuse, 87% say so, but women do not believe so. I'm going to skip this part as well, but it's important that when you look at the age groups, and we find that women are all pious and pavitra and all that, and you'll find that figures, women having sex at a much earlier age is much higher. Women who have had sexual intercourse in the last 12 months. This I'll skip. I think I'll come to the one which is talk about not have any figure for women having paid sex. But what we want to look at is HIV, sexually transmitted diseases, knowledge of first sex. 43% of women aged 15 to 24 have ever had sex compared to 22% of young men aged 15 to 24. What do you think may be a possible explanation? One is for the marriage age. Marriage age is also there, no? Girls can marry 15 onwards, their marriage is valid, even though the age is 18. So the legal age is 18 for them, and in any case for boys it is 21. So 3 years difference is there. Even if we were to look at the legitimate sphere for sexual activities is marriage, then we do know that young girls get married at a younger age. So certainly more girls will have been exposed to sex than boys in the same age group. So on the face of it, it will seem that, oh, what happened to the chastity and virginity of women? But we do realize that one has to see this figure in the context of the marriage age as well. But when you look at below 15, this is again interesting. 3% of young women below the age of 15 compared to 1% of men have sex before that age. Among women aged 15 to 24, the likelihood of ever having had sex and having had sex before 18 declined sharply with schooling. Certainly, women get more control over their bodies with some schooling. 72% of women with no schooling had ever had sex, and 9% had sex before 15, compared with 34% of women with 12 or more years of schooling having ever had sex, and less than 1% having sex before age of 15. So education certainly have got some positive consequence here for girls. It also varies in this age group depending on which economic background you come from. The percentage who have ever had sex declined from 49 to 31% among women in the highest wealth quintile. And the percentage who had sex before 35 declined from 5 among women in lowest to 1% in the highest economic background. Premarital sex. 97% of women never married women, and 89% of married men had never had sexual intercourse. So majority of men and women are virgin, but very, very higher percentage of women are virgin at the time of marriage. Only 1% of never married women and 7% of never married men. So majority of the never married women and men are having sex. It's very few. It's it's very minor percentage for both men and women who have had sex. And these are talking about past 12 months. It's not saying they never had. So we do not know, but certainly it's indicating that sex is not as common among the never married men and women. And certainly marriage is seen as the legitimate sphere of sexual activity. Among never married women and men who had sex in the past 12 months, 37% of women, 51% of men used a condom. So it's not again majority who is using Certainly not in case of women. And when saying women, certainly it is the male partner they're talking about. The percentage of never married women and men who have never had sexual intercourse decreases with age from 98% of women and 96% of men aged 15 to 17 to 95 and 81% in 23 to 24. And that's also indicative of the adolescent curiosity about sex. That with puberty, there are a lot of sexual experiences which people go through, and there's a lot of experimentation at that age compared to when you're more settled with your adulthood. Among never married men, aged 15 to 24, more than twice as many who were away from home for 1 month or more at a time in the past 3 months had sexual intercourse as men who were not away from home. Okay, this I'll skip. Coverage, HIV prevalence. Now let's look at these figures. Employment of currently married women and men. 31% of currently married women and 91% of currently married men are employed. So this is a huge indicator of the dependence of women on their husbands. Among employed women, 80% earn cash and 16% are not paid at all, even though they're employed. More than 8 out of 10 employed women participate in decision-making about their own earnings. More than 8 out of 10. So 82% is a much better percentage compared to the last year, where they were saying that do they have control over their earnings. Access to mobile phones and bank account. 53% of women have a bank or saving account that they themselves use. This is also a higher percentage compared to last year. 46% of women have mobile phone that they use themselves. 2/3 of women who have mobile phone can read text messages. Participation in decision making. Less than 2/3 of currently married women participate in making decisions about their own health, major household purchase, and visit to their own family and relative alone or jointly with their husband, while 16% do not participate in any of these. Wow. This has increased, but it is still, you can see, total is 63%. So the remaining, how much, what percentage? 27%. So 1/3, more than 1/3, more than 1/3 still do not have a voice, even to visit their own family. So Gyarjibai and Dirajia was among this percentage. Attitude toward wife beating. Again, more women agree wife beating is justifiable than men. And one of the 7 specified reasons. Agreement with 1 or more reasons for wife beating has fallen for men since the 3rd survey, but has remained unchanged for women. Women in southern states like Kerala with highest literacy rate agree with reason for wife beating show the deep impact of patriarchal values. Asset ownership. 37% of women compared to 65 men own a house alone or jointly with someone, and 28% women and 49% men own a land alone or jointly with someone. So certainly, again, we are showing the economic dependence of women and the economic poverty of women. Control over men's earning. This is interesting. Currently married women whose husband had cash earnings and currently married men who had cash earnings were asked who usually make decisions about the use of husband's earnings. Women and men gave similar answers. 7 to 8% says that it is the wife who mainly decides, which means 92% said it is the husband which decides. 64 to 65% said the decision is made jointly. And okay, so it's not the total 92%. Out of that is 26 or 27%, which said that the husband mainly takes the decision. So again, 1/3 of the husbands decide how the money will be used by the husband. Decision making about the use of husband's earning does not vary much by most background characteristics, although it is notable that joint decision making is more common among Sikhs and Jain than couples with any other background characteristics. Women's role in decision making. 59% men say that a wife should have an equal or greater say in all the 5 specified decisions, and only 5% say that she should not have an equal or greater say in any of the 5 decisions. For all type decisions, men are much more likely to say that the wife and husband should have an equal say than to say that either one should have a greater say. Decision making regarding how many children to have, men are most likely to say that both husband and wife should have an equal say, and 10% said husband should have more say. Major household purchases, husband should have a greater say than the wife. 28% husband and 9% wife. This pattern is also true regarding decision about visits to wife's family or relatives. For decision about purchases for daily needs, men are somewhat more likely to say that the wife should have the greater say than to say that the husband. So if you know what you will buy for the kitchen, that women can decide. This is also true for decision about what to do with the money the wife earns. Women access to money and microcredit. 42% they can alone decide how to use. 53% women have a bank savings account that they use themselves. Fewer women know about microcredit programs, and very few have taken actually a microcredit loan. Women in urban area have more access with education, wealth, and age. Freedom of movement. To go alone, 50% of the women can go alone to the market, 50% to the health facility, 48% to places outside the village. For all, only 41% of women are allowed to go alone to all the 3 places, and 6 are not allowed to go alone to any of the 3 places. Women's freedom of movement increases with household wealth, but does not vary consistently with education. The percentage for the women to go alone to 3 places increases from 35 to 47 in the highest wealth quartile. Attitude toward wife beating. So the yellows are men, and they're lesser in all the categories than women. So women have accepted wife beating as normalized behavior on their husband's part compared to the husbands. Goes out without telling him, neglects the house or children, argues with him, refuses to have sex with him, doesn't cook properly. He suspects she is unfaithful. Oh, this is 23, same percent. She shows disrespect for in-laws. Any of these reasons. Safer sex with husband. Majority of women and men in India believe that women is justified to refuse sex for all of the 3 specified reasons. So this is different because this was men were higher in the previous survey. 17% of women and 15% of men do not agree that a wife can refuse sex for any of the 3 reasons. So in this again, percentage is higher. But 3 out of 4 women and men agree with each of the reasons. 18% of men do agree that husband has a right to get angry and reprimand a woman if she refuses to have sex with her husband. Ownership of assets. Certainly, men have got a lot more than women have. Ownership of financial assets and mobile phone. This is urban-rural depiction. So in urban area, more women have compared to the women in the rural setting. Domestic violence. 30% physical violence since age 15 and 6% sexual violence. This is talking about the marital rape. 4% of ever pregnant women have experienced physical violence even during pregnancy. Spousal violence, 33% have experienced physical, sexual, or emotional spousal violence. Now, this is important to remember this figure. because this is all about Section 498A. This is the percentage of women who have suffered violence, and we need to look at the number of complaints made under 498A. So, if at all abuse is happening of that section, what is the scale of the abuse compared to the scale of violence against women? The most common type of spousal violence is physical, 30%, emotional, 14%, 7% sexual violence. Key findings: ever married women, ever experience of spousal physical sexual violence has declined 37 to 31%. However, there has been no change in women's experience of spousal physical or sexual violence in 12 months preceding the survey. Injuries: 1/4 of ever married women experience spousal physical or sexual violence, have experienced physical injuries. 8% who had eye injuries, sprains, dislocation, burns. 5% who have had deep wounds, broken bones, broken teeth, or any other serious injury. And did we say marriage is all, living ever happily ever after? Help seeking: only 14% have sought any help to stop violence. So this is the abuse of law is among these 14% women, if at all there is any abuse. So that's also very, very important category to look at. Perpetrators of physical violence. There are 70% after marriage they got no reprieve. For married women, violence, most common perpetrators include mothers, stepmothers, fathers, stepfathers, sisters or brothers, and teachers. So people, it's not that the never married women do not experience violence. It's also there, and but we do not have that percentage here. It's only that those who have experienced is the percentage of who has been the abuse among the abusers. Marital control by husband. 27% of ever married women report that their husband is jealous or angry when they talk to other men. 24% report that he does not trust them with any money. 22% report that he does not permit them to meet their female friends. 20% report that he insists on knowing where they are at all times. 17% report that he tries to limit their contact with their families. 9% report that he frequently accuses them of being unfaithful. Now, this is a very important, again, an important set 6, because when you look at abusers in domestic violence, there's a very common patterns in abuse. The husbands and relatives isolate the girl. She is made to lose her, when the in-laws, her parents and her family members visit or friends visit, they will be made so uncomfortable that they would not want to come. She will not be allowed to go and speak with them or talk to them or visit them. Her confidence will be broken. These are indicators found in all categories. So therefore, all this states that how they isolate the girl for her to become the victim and not able to reach out to anybody. It's like property of the men. So that's all that I had from her. Let's get back to the class. Stop sharing. So with these set 6, do you have, what's your now thinking? Whether any of you think that these are questionable figures, these are startling figures, these are indicative of something which you're not thought about?
Ma'am, I have a question on this slide.
Yes, yes, Ramesh.
Ma'am, first question is that this is a world, and जो आपने figures दिखाए हैं, this is of India, right, ma'am?
जी.
Ma'am, मेरा point ये है कि every country in this world have their different type of norms, and if you see that Western countries like US, Europe, their women are getting freedom, whatever the rights they are choosing. They don't have the concept of family actually. जिसको जो पसंद आता है तब वो उससे शादी कर लेता है, जिसको जब पसंद आता है डिवोर्स ले लेता है, right, ma'am?
नहीं, it's wrong.
ओके मैम, ठीक है, इसमें आप पे मैं बात करूंगा।
जी।
ठीक है मैम, वो ओपनली इस चीज को मतलब डिक्लेयर करते हैं सोसाइटी में कि यस वी आर हैविंग 10 years ऑफ मैरिज, नाउ वी आर सेपरेटिंग फ्रॉम ईच अदर, वी आर
नहीं
हैप्पी।
रमेश, मेजोरिटी वेस्ट में शादी नहीं करती है, वो सिर्फ लिव इन में रहते हैं।
हाँ राइट मैम, वही मैं कह रहा हूँ, उनका कॉन्सेप्ट अलग है। बट अगर आप इंडियन
मगर बैलेंस तभी उतना ही है।
हाँ मैम, एक मिनट, मैं पॉइंट पे आ रहा हूँ मैम। पॉइंट ये है मेरा कि मैम देखिए, वहां पे फ्रीडम है लेडीज को बिकॉज दे आर एजुकेटेड। बट इंडियन कॉन्टेक्स्ट में क्या है मैम, इंडियन कॉन्टेक्स्ट में मतलब 70% जो है एग्रीकल्चर बेस्ड इंडियन इकोनॉमी है, इंडियन माइंडसेट है पीपल का, क्योंकि स्टिल इंडिया इज अ डेवलपिंग कंट्री, राइट मैम। एंड सेकंड पॉइंट इज दिस, ठीक है, अब लेडीज को मतलब एजुकेशन मिल रही है, गवर्नमेंट भी सब्सिडीज दे रही है, फ्री है एजुकेशन, है सब कुछ है। तो जब वो ऑलरेडी पोस्ट ग्रेजुएट हो जाती है, ग्रेजुएट होती है, पोस्ट ग्रेजुएट होती है, तो दे शुड चूज देयर ओन हस्बैंड, व्हाई दे आर गोइंग इनटू द कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ मैरिज। पॉइंट नंबर 1 मैम, 1 मिनट।
No. The whole West chooses their own partners, and they still end up with abusive husbands or boyfriends. So it is not if you choose, there will be no violence. That's the whole point. That whether you are no Ramesh, whether you are in a choice relationship or you are in a chosen relationship, in both categories, women are getting beaten up, and they are getting beaten up across the world. Despite the education that is being higher, despite there being all choices, but to say that merely because even when you look at the educated women in India, have they got out of the patriarchal mindset when they themselves are not wanting to produce daughters? So the mindset doesn't change. Education does nothing to change or to challenge the patriarchal setup of our society. So whether you are married or you're not married, it doesn't change.
एक पॉइंट मैम इस पे ये है, इफ दे आर एजुकेटेड, फर्स्ट पॉइंट इज दैट व्हाई दे आर मैरिंग, बिकॉज सोसाइटी के जो नॉर्म्स है वो बहुत ओल्डन टाइम में सेट किए थे कि यू हैव टू मैरी इफ यू आर एजुकेटेड इनफ टू सर्वाइव इन दिस सोसाइटी एंड अर्न योर ओन लाइवलीहुड, देन व्हाई यू आर मैरिंग। बिकॉज इफ यू सी द वेस्टर्न countries, they are having the fostering house concept. If you are having a child, the child is the liability of the states and state will pay them free education till the age of attaining majority.
तो ऐसा कुछ नहीं है, ऐसा कुछ नहीं है।
फॉस्टर हाउस मैम कहाँ पे मैम, फॉस्टर हाउस इंग्लैंड में है या नहीं है?
अरे एक जमाने में सोवियत यूनियन में होते थे, वहां पे भी नहीं है।
तो हो सकता है वो इंडिया को फॉलो करना चाह रहे हैं मैम, ये हो सकता है।
नहीं, कोई नहीं फॉलो करना चाह रहा, बिकॉज पहले होता था कि बिकॉज इन द सोवियत एरा ऑफ सोवियत यूनियन, अब तो वो भी कितने साल हो गए, डिकेड हो गया, वो भी खत्म हो गया, तो वहां पे भी नहीं है। और अब जहाँ पे स्टेट सब्सिडी दे रही है उन फैमिलीज को जो ज्यादा बच्चे प्रोड्यूस कर रहे हैं, क्योंकि उनकी पॉपुलेशन तो खत्म होती जा रही है। एवरी ईयर दे आर लूजिंग मिलियंस ऑफ पॉपुलेशन बिकॉज पेरेंट्स आर नॉट रेडी टू ब्रिंग अप चिल्ड्रन, क्योंकि इतना एक्सपेंसिव है बच्चों को पालना कि वो पेरेंट्स अफोर्ड ही नहीं कर सकते। तो जर्मनी में सबको नहीं मिलती है। जिन पेरेंट्स के 3 या 3 से ज्यादा बच्चे हैं उनको स्टेट जो है एजुकेशन फ्री देती है, ट्रेवल फ्री देती है। तो हर एक कंट्री में जहां वो पॉपुलेशन इंक्रीज करना चाह रहे हैं उधर वो उनको सपोर्ट दे रहे हैं। हमारे यहाँ हो रहा है कि अगर आपने 2 से ज्यादा बच्चा पैदा किए तो आपको काफी बेनिफिट्स बंद हो जाएंगे, कुछ आपको इवन मैटरनिटी लीव नहीं मिलेगी 2 से ज्यादा बच्चे पैदा करोगे तो आप।
एग्जैक्टली हमारे यहाँ सही है। बट मैम मेरा पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू ये है कि यहाँ पे इनको फ्रीडम ऑफ चॉइस तो है ना मैम। मेरा कहने का मतलब इफ यू आर एजुकेटेड सो मच इनफ देन यू आर हैविंग अ फ्रीडम ऑफ चॉइस।
मैं यही बता रही हूँ रमेश, that we believe that with education women will be able to exercise free choice, but the free choice concept doesn't exist in women's bringing up. They are also told in the West there is so much of stigmatization of women who do not have a boyfriend. Just to have a steady boyfriend is a huge burden on the Western women. So the social norms haven't changed, education or no education. And I was quite surprised to learn this when I was in England for a year, to find out that lots of women and men were into relationships just because the norm required them to have a boyfriend and a girlfriend. And anybody who cannot have a boyfriend and a girlfriend, they're ostracized. So it is not, so the marriage has gone out of fashion But relationships haven't gone out of fashion. You have to have a boyfriend or a girlfriend. And the emphasis and the pressure to have a boyfriend is much more on the women than it is on the boys. So these are all convenience arrangements. So for them, sex is not sacrosanct the way we want to perceive by our law in India. For them, sex is just a physical requirement which they fulfill in these relationships. So relationships and only those few marry who are planning to then start a family with children. So that's a different kind of context. But what I'm saying is that even in case of live-in relationships, even after the breaking has happened, the woman has left that relationship, the ex-boyfriend comes and still beats her up. And we also saw in this ex-husbands are also beating them up. What are your business of beating me up? I'm not no more your wife. So whether the women are married, whether they are not married, whether they have made their own choice, whether they have been fixed in the arranged marriages, women are facing domestic violence in all relationships, despite education, despite money. That's the point. And that is where the ideology has to be understood, that we are living and brought up in a patriarchal system where we grant more power to men. And it is not only men who are wielding that power, it is women also who accept that they should wield more power.
मैम आपका पॉइंट ठीक है मैम, बट ये भी पॉइंट है ना कि आपको अगर प्रॉब्लम पता है तो व्हाई टू फॉल इन दैट प्रॉब्लम? इफ यू डोंट फॉल इनटू दैट प्रॉब्लम, आधी चीज तो वहीं पे सॉल्व हो जाती
है। हिंदी की कहावत सुनी है, एक तरफ खड्डा और एक तरफ खाई?
यस मैम, सुना है
ना? तो जो अनमैरिड वुमेन होती हैं, they face so much of sexual aggression because men think they are available to any man. They cannot handle that day-to-day aggression from strangers. So then the choice is to feel aggression from all kinds of strangers or feel aggression from one man.
But ma'am, there are rules and regulation to safeguard them. They know their rights. Because आजकल context में अगर आप देखेंगे तो इंडिया में रूल्स एंड रेगुलेशन है. अगर स्ट्रेंजर आपको अगर स्टॉक करता है, कुछ भी करता है, जो भी है,
आपने बॉम्बे हाई कोर्ट का जजमेंट पढ़ लिया ना, जो मैंने भेजा?
हाँ मैम, मैंने पढ़ा मैम, अच्छी से पढ़ा, एंड इट इज अ राइट जजमेंट. आई सपोर्ट दैट जजमेंट.
रियली?
यस मैम. उसमें
सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने आज जो है उसको स्टे कर दिया है.
मैम ठीक है.
हाँ, क्यों आप सपोर्ट करते हो जजमेंट को?
मैम मैं इसलिए कर रहा हूँ बिकॉज देयर आर वुमेन्स आल्सो इन दिस सोसाइटी इन इंडिया स्पेशली, मतलब गलत तरीके से यूज कर रही है. लॉ ठीक है बनाया है उनकी प्रोटेक्शन.
Don't mix up the two things. We are talking about a specific case where the facts are saying that the man groped her breast, he was trying to remove her salwar, and when he was caught, he was trying to rape her. This is the scenario we're talking about. We're not talking about abstract women.
Ma'am, ठीक है मैम.
How in these circumstances? No, Ramesh, you have to listen first.
Okay.
Have you read the judgment?
Yes, ma'am.
You know what are the facts?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me what are the facts?
मैम फैक्ट यही है बेसिकली कि एक माइनर गर्ल है, उसको कोई उनका जो
माइनर गर्ल की एज पता है आपको?
यस मैम.
कितने साल की है?
बिलो 16 इयर्स है.
नहीं, वो बिलो 12 इयर्स है.
मैम तो वही मैं एक पॉइंट पे
आपको फैक्ट्स में नहीं ऐसे नहीं होता रमेश. You cannot make a generalized statement on the when we are talking about a particular case and the interpretation given in that judgment. How is groping the breast of a woman, a young girl, without removing her clothes is not sexual assault under the POCSO legislation? Whether my physical touch is only my body? Look at use of force definition, which says even if the clothes you are wearing, if that is touch, that is use of force, criminal use of force. From where is the judge coming, and you are coming from the same area?
Ma'am,
can you justify it by law?
Ma'am,
which law you will tell me any other interpretation, any other judgment in the whole world which says physical touch means that it has to be skin to skin?
Ma'am, that is fine, ma'am, but in practice.
And it is fine, then what is left? What is left to agree with the judgment?
मैम वही मैं बोल रहा हूँ मैम, इस पॉइंट पे ही आ रहा हूँ मैम. पहले सुन तो लीजिए मेरा पॉइंट क्या है. मैम मेरा सिर्फ पॉइंट ये है कि जो माइनर गर्ल है 12 इयर्स एंड बिलो है, उसकी कस्टडियन किसके पास? उसकी मदर के पास है. She knows that कि when she is with stranger, why she is with stranger? Question ये आता है because you let her to go with that person and who is doing that all nonsense because of that जो भी हो रहा है. तो उसकी कस्टोडियंस को उसकी, क्योंकि वो माइनर गर्ल है, उसको पता नहीं है व्हाट इज राइट एंड व्हाट इज रॉन्ग, तो उसकी मदर को पहली चीज है अपनी बेटी को किसी के साथ जाने ही नहीं देना चाहिए जब आप जानते ही नहीं हो कि वो कौन है। दूसरा क्वेश्चन ये आ रहा है कि इस जज ने अगर ये टच के ऊपर जो कॉन्सेप्ट दिया है वो इसलिए दिया है बिकॉज ऑफ दिस लोग इसका मिस यूटिलाइजेशन कर रहे हैं, जिसका सो मेनी पीपल आर सफरिंग एंड नोबडी इज नोइंग द एग्जैक्टली व्हाट पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू, मतलब उसमें एविडेंस क्या कलेक्ट किए हैं, किस सिचुएशन में किए हैं, क्योंकि माइनर वुमेन माइनर गर्ल की जो मदर है, वट एवर द एलिगेशन शी इज पुटिंग ऑन दैट पर्सन, he has to face that consequences, and because of POSCO Act उसकी
I
लाइफ
mean,
पूरी
what is the
खराब हो
judgment finally? What is the judgment finally? Is he guilty of any offense or not offense?
it is guilty of that offense but not in POSCO specifically, तो 1 year का उसको दिया है।
He has groped the woman. She's not a telling lies, na?
Ma'am, that's why he is given 1 year
No, there is no lie. No, Ramesh, you're not even understanding what you're talking about.
मैम मैं इस पॉइंट पे कह रहा हूँ
रमेश जी
are not in question. The facts in this case are not in question. That yes, he did grope her. The only thing is whether groping with her breast with the bra on, is that an offense or not? That's the question. Not that she was telling a lie or her mother was telling a lie. And by the way, when it comes to natural guardian, it is the father. Why you're blaming the mother? Is the father not aware? Is he not to blame? If it, no, you are victim blaming. It is their fault. Why did they allow? Why did she go there?
these
The man
factors
is
are
not to blame. No, he's free. No, he's the man. No, he's free to grope anyone. Any strange woman. That's why women want to get married or get into relationships, because of this whole tendency that if a woman is allowed to go with someone, or she comes with me, she's all asking for it. That's what you are saying to me.
यार रमेश जी एक चीज और, लोअर कोर्ट ने उसको कन्विक्ट कर दिया था और हाई कोर्ट ने उसको जो है सेक्शन 6 या सेक्शन 7 जो है पॉक्सो का, उसमें उसको जो है कन्विक्ट नहीं किया। तो आप ये देखिए, जो आईपीसी हम पढ़ते हैं, आईपीसी में बड़ा स्ट्रिक्टली हमको चीजें फॉलो करनी पड़ती हैं, है ना। यहाँ जो जज ने इंटरप्रेट किया है ना, जो कि अक्रॉस जो लीगल एरिना है उसमें इसको डिनाउंस किया जा रहा है कि आप लिबरल व्यू कैसे दे सकते हैं आईपीसी के किसी भी जो है सेक्शन के बारे में। तो यहाँ जो जज ने लिबरल व्यू दिया है ना कि डायरेक्ट कांटेक्ट, है ना, तो ये सबसे ज्यादा जो है डेंजरस है ना। किसी ने ग्लव्स पहन के कुछ टच कर लिया, है ना, किसी ने जो है स्टिक से यूज करा कुछ चीज को, तो आप सोचिए कितना डेंजरस साइन है। आईपीसी को लिबरल वे में हम डील नहीं कर सकते हैं ना। तो इसी चीज को जो है जो डिनाउंस किया जा रहा है। और ये जो मैडम बोल रहे हैं, आज स्टे भी हो गया, देखिए सुप्रीम कोर्ट पर ना उसका। तो ऐसे
वो स्टे हुआ है
completely outrageous है। This is not a liberal interpretation. Possibility ही नहीं है इस interpretation की। There is no way that you can say physical touch. जब आपकी IPC की definition recognize करती है that touching your clothes is touching your body, then how can you say that touching the breast without removing the bra is not touching? How can she come from? This is complete ignorance of the law and a twisting in a very negative manner. I don't want to use the words which I really think about this judgment. Ludicrous judgment, reasoning of the judge.
Ma'am, I want to raise a point here.
Then for a judge is supposed to defend that judgment, because some women make a false allegation. 11-year-old girl is making a false allegation. Her mother is making a false allegation, while the judgment itself does not say false. Ramesh ji is thinking it is all false. What is this? What is this understanding?
I'm just saying that nobody is मतलब अभी as of
We are
now
talking about one judgment, Ramesh. We're not talking about other areas at all. We're talking about this judgment.
मैम
In
इसी
this
जजमेंट
judgment,
की बात कर रहा हूं,
anybody saying it is a false statement.
मैम मैं इसी
Well,
जजमेंट
the
के
court is not saying it's a false statement. If it's not a false statement, how does the question of falseness comes in?
May I just
Let's come back to the data we were discussing. This is unnecessary. Yes.
I was just wondering about we are all educated enough to understand that now currently this class is about to understand the equality between men and women. And then I heard that again allegations on women that you are educated why you want to marry. If marriage is so abusive for you, when you see the other thing, I mean, why do we all the time need to in every situation put that obligation on woman that it's your wrong decision that you are going to marry, even statistics show that it is bad. Why? Marriage is something good, okay? But do not look at the Western experience or here or there. It's not about personal choices. Some people may prefer to not marry, some people prefer to marry. But even if you prepare to marry, and you know that there are such situations happening, still now we are hearing that women are in mistake, that it's their choice, being educated and knowing that there are such statistics, such things are happening in the after marriage, so it's their choice to not marry. Why don't we just try and take out this ideology of all the time putting all the guilt on women and start thinking to look at the situation and at the men, what are the wrongs that they are continuously doing, and stop thinking from that perspective that, you know, these days women are privileged more than men.
No,
and men
no,
are
I know what
victims.
Ramesh is saying, that if women decide to marry, they must know it's a violent place. They have accepted violence when they decide to marry.
Yeah,
They
exactly.
is assuming that men will continue to beat and
That's
women will beat. So therefore, better not get married.
That's
It's
not,
not
that's
saying
not.
that the men will marry, they will change anything in marriage. Men
मैम
will
आपने
continue.
रॉन्ग कॉन्सेप्ट लिया मेरा. मैं
No,
एक्चुअली
what is the rationale for saying why should they marry? Why are they marrying the men?
मैम मैं
Are
ये
they
सिर्फ
marrying the
इतना
men
कह रहा हूँ
thinking that
अगर
they will
वुमेन
beat them up?
एजुकेटेड है, मेरा सिर्फ पॉइंट है, अगर वुमेन एजुकेटेड है, इफ शी इज अ पोस्ट ग्रेजुएट या ग्रेजुएट whatever, she can take her own decision, then
Yeah,
she should
taking
choose.
the decision, she does not know that this man is abusive. She gets to know it only after her marriage. She believes she will be happily ever, she will be living happily ever after.
मैम
Which
यही तो
doesn't
मेरा
turn out to
क्वेश्चन
be
है,
so because
यही तो मेरा
education.
क्वेश्चन है कि ये वेस्टर्न वर्ल्ड में भी तो होता है मैम, वहाँ प्रॉब्लम नहीं होती.
The problem is not about India. Problem is about women.
Stop,
तो
Anush.
रमेश, हमारी सोसाइटी कोई वेस्टर्न सोसाइटी थोड़ी ना है. हम कोई एक्सपेरिमेंट थोड़ी ना करते हैं शादी से पहले कि जचेगा कि नहीं जचेगा मुंडा.
नहीं, तो मैं वही कह रहा हूँ, लेकिन आप लोग जो लॉ लेके आ रहे हो, इंडिया में जो भी लॉ इम्प्लीमेंट हो रहा है वो वेस्टर्न सोसाइटी से ही बोरो किया जा रहा है. अगर रेप लॉ की बात कर रहे हो या आप किसी चीज, जो भी लॉ है, महिला आयोग के जितने भी लॉ है, वो सारे वेस्टर्न सोसाइटी से लिए गए हैं. आप
अच्छा
देखिए.
रमेश, आप एक बताओ, सवाल बताओ, आप इक्वालिटी में बिलीव करते हो नहीं करते हो?
मैम आई बिलीव, डेफिनेटली आई बिलीव.
तो इक्वालिटी वेस्टर्न वैल्यू है, इंडियन है?
वेस्टर्न वैल्यू है मैम.
उसमें तो ऑब्जेक्शन नहीं हुआ आपको?
इसलिए मैम मैं कब मना कर रहा हूँ मैम, लेडीज को तो मैं खुद राइट्स देना चाहता हूँ, बट
वेस्टर्न लॉ लेके आ रहे हो. जब हमने इक्वालिटी बेस से लाई तब तो ऑब्जेक्शन हुआ नहीं. जब हमने कहा कि नहीं, कास्ट डिस्क्रिमिनेशन नहीं होगी, डिसेबिलिटी डिस्क्रिमिनेशन नहीं होगी, वो सब हमने जब कहा तब तो नहीं कहा. जो वेस्टर्न वैल्यू हम तो हराती
मैं वही कह रहा हूँ,
तब तो बोले नहीं वेस्टर्न है.
मैम देखिए, वही मैं कहना चाह रहा हूँ, वेस्ट कंट्रीज में देयर इज नो कास्ट. इंडिया में ही सिर्फ कास्ट के ऊपर आपका रिजर्वेशन एंड ऑल सॉर्ट ऑफ थिंग्स है. अब मैं
कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन है क्या वेस्ट में? ब्लैक्स नहीं है क्या?
तो उनको कोई राइट्स नहीं है मैम, उनको कोई राइट्स नहीं है, ऐसा कोई स्पेशल राइट्स
नहीं.
अरे वो क्या बात कर रहे हो रमेश, अफर्मेटिव एक्शन होते हैं वेस्ट में.
अब रमेश को थोड़ा बहुत आप पढ़ना पड़ेगा.
रॉन्ग सेंस में मत लीजिए मैम, बिकॉज डिबेट करके ही मेरे को बहुत कुछ सीखने को मिलता है.
तो सही है, नहीं डिबेट करने में कोई ऑब्जेक्शन नहीं है. मुझे अच्छा लगता है जब स्टूडेंट्स डिसएग्री करते हैं, मगर आप सोचिए जिस बात पे जिस वजह से ऑब्जेक्ट कर रहे हो, क्या वो जस्टिफिएबल है? हम मना नहीं करते किसी को भी डिसएग्री करने के लिए, क्योंकि डिसएग्रीमेंट से ही एग्रीमेंट निकलता है या एग्री टू डिसएग्री निकलता है, तो उसमें कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. पर जब आप मुझे एक जजमेंट की बात हो रही है और आप जनरल वुमेन अब्यूजिंग द लॉ ले आते हो, तो वो डिस्कनेक्शन है. यू आर नॉट थिंकिंग कोहेरेंटली. उसमें ऑब्जेक्शन है. जब ये कहते हो कि लड़कियां फिर पढ़ लिख के शादी क्यों कर रही हैं, तो ये तो हम, जब हमारा क्या ऑब्जेक्शन है कि उनको शादी क्यों नहीं करनी चाहिए पढ़ लिख करके? अपनी पसंद से भी जब करती हैं, चाहे लड़के वाले लड़के जब पेरेंट ढूंढते हैं, तो वो ढूंढ के कोई मारने वाला हस्बैंड थोड़ी ढूंढते हैं ना. लड़कियां ढूंढती हैं मारने वाला हस्बैंड, वो लड़का निकल आता है मारने वाला. तो पढ़ाई का लड़के की चॉइस से तो कोई संबंध नहीं है ना. लड़कों को नहीं समझ में आया कि हमें मारना छोड़ना पड़ेगा. हम भी पढ़ लिख गए हैं. जब एक लड़की पढ़ी लिखी एमए है, तो वो भी कम से कम एमए पास हो लड़का ढूंढती है, उसको चॉइस करती है. उस पढ़े लिखे लड़के को नहीं पता कि मारना नहीं है. मारना इज नॉट अ वे ऑफ कम्युनिकेशन विद द फैमिली मेंबर्स. or for anybody else for that matter. तो हम ये नहीं देखे लड़के क्यों मार रहे हैं, अगर लड़कियां शादी क्यों कर रही हैं, भाई क्यों ऑब्जेक्शन कर लड़कियों की शादी करने पे? आप ही कल को कहोगे बच्चे भी पैदा नहीं हो रहे, फिर आप बोलो कि आप ये शादी करो और बच्चे पैदा करो तो हम आपको इंसेंटिव देंगे, फिर वो जो वेस्ट में चल रहा है वो हमें करना पड़ेगा। तो जो 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 पूरी अप्रोच आप कॉफी कप वाली लेके आ रहे हो वो तो नहीं चलेगी ना इस क्लास में। यू हैव टू हैव रैशनल व्हिच इज कंसिस्टेंट विद योर आर्गुमेंट।
ऑलराइट मैम,
ma'am,
थोड़ा
Ma'am, there is another point that I would want to add to what you said कि जहाँ रमेश बात कर रहा है एजुकेशन का और डिग्रीज का और हम लोग पोस्ट ग्रेजुएशन और एमए कर लेते हैं, एट टाइम्स अभी माँ बाप को भी पता चल रहा है कि मतलब 12वीं पास लड़की को नहीं मिलने वाला अच्छा लड़का, so वो they actually educate the girls in terms of getting degree education. I'm understanding from getting information and degree. तो वो अपनी लड़की को 12वीं मतलब पोस्ट ग्रेजुएशन भी करवाएंगे, बट दैट काइंड ऑफ करेज दैट रिक्वायर्स टू मेक अ इन्फॉर्म्ड चॉइस, वो एनवायरनमेंट नहीं दिया जाता लड़कियों को कि अच्छा वो इन्फॉर्म्ड चॉइस मेक कर सके कि अच्छा ऐसा हो रहा है मेरे साथ में तो मैं ऐसा करूं, या फिर किस तरीके से एक रिएक्ट करना है सिचुएशन के लिए।
नहीं जो ये तो बिल्कुल सही है कि लड़कियों को इसलिए पढ़ाया जाता है कि उनसे उनको अच्छा लड़का मिलेगा, और चाहे पेरेंट ढूंढे, चाहे लड़कियां ढूंढे, चाहे लड़के ढूंढे, हर जना अच्छा पार्टनर ढूंढते हैं। लड़कों के साथ होता है कि उनकी वाइफ अच्छी नहीं निकलती है, जो भी उनकी रिक्वायरमेंट थी या जो उनकी एक्सपेक्टेशन थी। कभी आपका मन मुटाव होता है कि हमारा एप्टीट्यूड नहीं मिलता है, हमारे रवैये नहीं मिलते हैं, सो लोग म्यूचुअल कंसेंट में आजकल चले जाते हैं, डाइवोर्स ले लेते हैं। जो भी जना जब शादी में जाते हैं तो नेचुरली इस एक्सपेक्टेशन से जाते हैं दैट वी विल हैव अ हैप्पी loving affectionate life together and will build up a family. उस expectation से हर जना enter करता है marriage में. It is only after the marriage and within first 2 years of marriage, women start finding abuse. And it's a question of the thappad kind of scenario, that first thappad and are you going to get out of the marriage? And we have lots of discussion. Last semester also we saw the trailer of thappad and we did discuss about it, whether one thappad in marriage is sufficient to break the marriage. And so therefore there are lots of, there's no yes and there's no black and white scenario as such. So whether thappad in no circumstance is justified, whether thappad justified, and we know that in our survey we just found that more women think it is justifiable for the husband to hit. And I'm quite sure the same women and same men were asked, is it okay to hit your colleague if you have a disagreement? None of it will say that yes, it's okay to hit a colleague. If it is not okay to hit a colleague, how can you hit a wife? How can you hit a husband? The conversation today, of course, has extended to children. You can't even hit children. So in those circumstances, in those conversations, how can we justify any hitting? And the hitting is being done by the more educated husband. So the burden is on the husband to explain why are they hitting? Why are they beating their wives? Why are they causing injuries which require hospitalization? Why they're causing grievous hurt injuries to the wives? It is not on the women that why did they marry? They did not marry an abusive man known to be abusive. So therefore, we certainly need to look at that, how the patriarchal values of saying men have got more power has survived these centuries of reforms and changes in the law and the norms. We are far from, across the world, we are far from equality in terms of house responsibilities. There's so many articles nowadays being written in the newspaper, they keep on coming out. What is the average number of hours a woman spends in household work, and how much lesser number of hours the men spend in the household work? So apart from the physical responsibility of producing children and the limitation and the confinement it brings to the women, there are a lot more that women have to live with in the families which are seen as safe places for us, for women. That's the concept we're challenging, that none of these factors are suggesting that women are safe in marriages, that the marital and their natal families are safe places for them. The concept of women being safe in families is such a myth that it has to be broken by reference to the data we have. So Ramesh is talking about why was she allowed to go with a stranger? Have you not heard of the known people molesting girls? So tomorrow I should not be leaving my daughter with my husband as well, with her father, because there are cases of incest. Then will you say that why did you leave her alone with the father? Why are we questioning the girls and the women in that scenario? Why are not we questioning the wrongdoers? Wrongdoers are to be justified for groping with the clothes on. That's not questionable. So that's something we have to really, constantly. Victim bashing is what we keep on doing, and we heard that today also in the class. Are the women responsible for the violence they suffer? Or are the men responsible for causing the violence? Why is it constantly that the men continue to bash up others? When you look at data on murder, primarily it's a male violence. Men kill men. But interestingly, when you look at women when you look at killing within the family members, it is many more women who are getting killed when it is within the family. So outside you're fighting with men, in the family you are killing your women. That's what your data are showing. So I think there's something very, very important to focus attention on the men rather than on what the women are doing. Women are dressing up like that. Women are talking like that. Women are going with that at that point of time. It's all saying women are doing wrong, and therefore, if they got violated, it's their problem. It's a problem of their own doing. What about the men? Are men supposed to grope women who are wearing clothes? Is that what we're saying about? Is it? This is what is this judgment is about this only. That it's okay for the man or a child of 11 years to be groped is okay as long as the man did not remove her clothes. From where is this judge coming? What is her thinking? And you know what is very shocking about this case? That this woman judge is usually known to be very, very pro-victims. We do not know what came over her in this judgment. And everybody in Bombay is asking that question. That what has happened to this woman judge? She was so pro-victim in all other cases, excepting this one. So we are still intrigued as to what had been. The first thought was that maybe because POCSO provides much severe punishment, minimum 3 years of imprisonment. And in IPC, it is minimum 1 year of imprisonment. And it is maximum 3 years here, and under the POCSO legislation, 5 years. But just severity of punishment cannot be the reason for this interpretation. There have to be something else, and we are all intrigued and we are trying to find out. Because it is completely non-comprehensible by what principle of interpretation this interpretation has come. Supreme Court itself is saying that it is very dangerous for future. They have immediately stated. And just on oral mentioning, not even a petition has been filed in the Supreme Court. They could have taken suo motu cognizance of this matter. So it is so disturbing. Okay, any other thoughts on the data, on the status of women?
Ma'am,
can I? Ma'am.
Yeah, get that up here. Then I don't know who was the second person.
I'm Divyanshi.
Okay, after Yagit.
Yes. Ma'am, according to me, data of our parents' generation will differ from data of our generation. Like in our generation, women are more educated, more empowered. And if we will frame the laws as per the data of our generation, then it will be more appropriate.
Yeah, get that.
And
Did you notice the age group of the data? 15 to 49 years. Is that your generation, not your generation?
ma'am, yes, ma'am, it is covering our generation also.
Then
Yes,
that
ma'am.
hypothesis is wrong. And what about the next generation? Who's producing the next generation children, your generation or my generation? It is your generation which doesn't want daughters.
Ma'am,
Increasingly so in generation after generation.
ma'am, I believe ma'am, in Republic Day parades, two women Air Force officer flew big planes and all that. So, ma'am, some great examples has been set up by the women of our generation.
We
So,
have had a president of India as a woman, we had the prime minister as a woman, but has that resulted into more women being produced?
ma'am, I think things are changing, and
Tell me,
now
where is the data? Where is the data? I just showed you the data. From 2001 to 2011, the percentage of girls being born is decreasing. And it is
Yes,
not a
ma'am.
natural phenomenon.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, yes,
So
ma'am.
then why girls not being allowed to be born? If we like
Ma'am,
them, they can make a good, they're making good progress. Then why do we as young parents or generation parents do not want to have daughters?
ma'am, that ma'am, patriarchal mindset, and
So
plus,
then nothing is changed. Nothing has changed that your generation data will be better. I do not have hope.
yes, ma'am.
Your generation
From
is talking about abuse by women. Your generation is not talking about abuse by men.
yes, ma'am. So,
One
but
thing,
ma'am, important balance should be strike. Ma'am,
No, we
important balance.
certainly hope that things will change, but hope doesn't change. It is our behavior which has to change. It is our thinking which has to change till the time something changes. Merely
Yes, ma'am.
hoping is not enough. No? Merely making the law is not enough. We've been making laws to change the status of women for a long time. It hasn't changed.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, thank you.
ma'am, one thing
So
to add, in
Divyanshi,
our generation,
Divyanshi wants to say something, Ananya, before you speak. Divyanshi?
Actually, I wanted to tell that still in India, in this middle class society, it is considered that marriage is like a safer home for women because it at least in nowadays it is believed that after parents are not there, we can't trust any other relation, close relation, like even if it is brother also, because these days many news comes like brother himself raping a sister and many things. So they kind of feel okay, just it is as a second safer home. It is considered after marriage, our matrimonial home, and next it like. As Ramesh said that when women is educated, then she can choose what she want to do, she want to marry or not. But still, it is considered that if women is not married, then society will start judging that there may be some problem in women, or might be she might have love affair or something kind of that thing, because still a single unmarried woman is not allowed to live in a society properly. Well, they see with very different perspective. Means they are not allowed and moreover if she is doing a job and coming late at home due to corporate culture, long times and all, so it is considered that they don't see it in a positive way. They consider it as in a negative way. And if women is doing a job and she is earning equal or more likely to earn higher than the men, then it is considered that the women she has too much ego. Yeah, she is very self-centered person. She is not abiding by the norms and of society, because many responsibilities of home are there. When she is in a matrimonial home, she has to do lot of household chores which she has to balance with her outside duties, which she is not able to fulfill. Then it is considered as her fault, and even as her parents' fault, that her parents have not taught her how to do this or something. It is something it is something which is considered as a fault of only mothers, like something. So I want.
I can see some more hands coming up, but we cannot have the discussion today. So we have Anchal, we have Anju, Ananya wanted to speak. Anush has also raised her hand. We'll put all of you on hold till tomorrow. We'll continue with our discussion, and maybe I'll pick up some films to show, some videos, some documentary, something. I don't know what I will pick up for tomorrow after we are through with our discussion and experience sharing on this aspect of what is. I think it may be a good idea for all of us to think about. In our personal life, have we ever experienced discrimination? And discrimination we might have faced as men or as women, as Hindus, as Muslims, as high caste, as low caste, can be any kind of discrimination. If you have felt that, And if you're ready to share that with us, we'll very welcome you to do that in our next class. So everybody put your attendance. Ananya will hold your whatever you wanted to say for tomorrow. So we meet tomorrow at what time? 3, no. Tomorrow is 3:50. We'll meet tomorrow at 3:50 and we'll carry on this discussion. Is that all right? Stop recording.